Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. This week, we saw some more Socceroos from the World Cup make their move, while a former Socceroo and a future Socceroo extend with their current clubs. We've also seen some big news for some veteran Matildas, with one hitting pause and another becoming an addict. There's action aplenty across Europe as competitions resume, and Toure starts where he finished last season for Norwich. European qualifiers roll on. We have a surprise Aussie on top in Scotland, and we've seen Aussies on target in the J-League as well. Back home, the CBA situation rolls on. The Mariners women's team have new owners, and there's spectacular goals and plenty of drama in the Australia Cup Round of 16. Mopper, what a week of Australian football.
Welcome everyone. Welcome viewers and listeners. How exciting this is. The season has started, as we said last week, in many leagues, continuing to commence across the board, and we're not too far away from a couple of others. So hope everyone's as super excited as I am, because as we spoke about, I am so confident of where the Aussies have placed themselves in the clubs, and I think it's already bearing fruit, and I'm looking forward to talking about all the most important points of football this week, because there's plenty, as always, to chat about.
All right, mate, let's start with the transfer activity. And I think you might have even called this one a few weeks ago, but Jackson Irvine from St. Pauli to the J-League. He's landed at Cerezo Osaka. What do you make of that move?
Yeah, look, culturally, I think it's great for Jackson Irvine. We know he's that cultural type of person. I thought the J-League would be, J-League or America would be a perfect fit for him. And he has landed in the J-League. That side, comes second in that changed league system last year, where they aligned the dates. So obviously they had this non-second tier competition to fill the void.
100-year Vision League thing.
Yes,
that they did.
Yeah, that's right. But 10th the year before, I think he'll go great in J-League. I think it's a perfect fit for him, and I think he'll be very happy there. I think culturally he likes these type of cities, and yeah, look, I think it's a good shot for the Asia Cup to remain in that Socceroos group, to be in Asia and still at a level where he can still make the Socceroos side and make an impact. So good move, Jackson Irvine. I think it's another positive move for the Australians.
Yeah, absolutely. And as with all these moves, as long as he plays and he's every chance to play in that league, obviously coming from the Bundesliga last year, where he played significant minutes when he wasn't injured for St. Pauli. And I think the J League's actually not a bad league in terms of ability. We know that it's quite tactical and technical in the J League, but I think a player like Jackson Irvine will be a very good fit. And as you said, culturally, we know that he likes to kind of get around these different places and make sure that he kind of acclimatizes. But yeah, I think fantastic for him to move to Cerezo Osaka. Becomes the 7th Aussie currently competing in the J-League this season. There's a few in J-League 2 as well. So we are seeing a fair few Aussies play in the J-League, and it's something that we've seen spits and spurts of it. Obviously, Mitch Duke has played a fair bit in the J-League, but outside of him, we haven't seen consistently players play in the J-League, and it's a bit of a change of the guard, I think, for Australians making this move, whether that's back from Europe or whether that's from the A-League to the J-League. But we know what a good league it is, and as you said, it's a perfect opportunity to remain in the shop window for the Asian Cup coming up.
Yeah, look, it's the J-League's the strongest, I reckon, in Asia, apart from probably Saudi Arabia's got that international flair. But I think overall, technically, the J-League's really strong, and it's something that I think more Aussies should look at as a good stepping stone, because you're right, there are eyes on Japan, and Japan have got that vision that they keep speaking about. All right, mate, what about the ladies? We've got Van Egmond to Charlton. What are your thoughts on that one? Another Aussie to Charlton.
Yeah, interesting for Van Egmond. Obviously at Leicester City last season, who had a pretty bad campaign really overall, and obviously Charlton on their way up from WSL2, picking up an experienced player. We weren't sure whether Van Egmond might go back to playing North America, which he's done on the odd occasion. And of course, she's kind of doubled back in the A-League women's competition. She's probably still a level above the A-League women's at the moment. So I think it's a positive move for Van Egmond. Like in terms of the Matildas setup, I know that she has been used a fair bit, but I think what you'll see from kind of this World Cup onwards, you'll start to see players like Van Egmond start to be phased out of the Matildas. So I think this is a good opportunity for her if she can get some consistent game time to stay in the window for the Women's World Cup next year, and a positive step in a very competitive league. And look, as we've said before, the WSL tends to be pretty top heavy. The top four teams or five teams tend to be strong, and then it drops off. So very even competition. But Charlton seem like an ambitious club and positive move for Van Egmond in my eyes.
Yep, definitely a sentiment to your thoughts, my friend. Good to stay at a top level leading into the World Cup next year. So good move from Van Egmond. And you're right, she did find herself on those fringes in the Asia Cup. So I think she's got still a lot to offer from experienced play at the World Cup. And then, yeah, there's some real young guns coming through, isn't there? So we'll watch this space. Should be a great role model for those younger ladies. And Chief Massimo Luongo, out injured last year, but did start a lot of games for Millwall at the start of last year. Re-signs with Millwall.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether they would give him another shot, just given his age, and obviously with the ACL injury, yet to see how he bounces back from that. But very positive. He did start the season very well before he got injured. He was certainly in the conversation for the World Cup before the injury, just having his experience and the way that he was playing as well. And we have seen that midfield depth get strengthened a lot in the last 12 months, but he's probably still a really outside shot of making the Socceroos. But look, just pleased for him. He's had such a strong career, particularly in England and in Europe, and just fantastic to see that Millwall's rewarded him for that. And I think he'll offer a lot of experience for the Millwall club. And they're probably ambitious to at least make the playoffs, if not push for promotion. So a player like him in the experience, and a nice way for him to kind of sign off. This is probably his last contract in England, or at least at that kind of championship level. So hopefully he can come back from this ACL injury and have a really positive season.
Yep, spot on. And we also seen Chief Brighton know their talent, don't they, when they see it, and they know they've got a good one here in Aussie goalkeeper Stephen Hall. We were banging on about Stephen Hall a couple of years ago, and we've been banging on about the under-20 side that won the Asia Cup, and he was our goalkeeper who won us the Asia Cup with that famous penalty shootout. And obviously went to the World Cup with the 20s as well. And we know how many players have gone on to bigger and better things. Harrington, Ocon, Engsler Jr. A lot of players have come from these 20s and gone on to bigger, better things. Now, he was at Brighton when he went to that Asia Cup. And the good news is the 21-year-old has signed a new 2-year deal with the Seagulls after playing a big role in the club's Premier League 2 winning team. I remember their last game against Man U in the final. They beat them 1-0. He kept a clean sheet. And, well, Chief, you've got to ask the biggest question of all. You know what state he's from, don't you?
You
The
have to be from
production
South
line.
Australia, wouldn't he?
Absolutely, my friend.
Yeah.
An Adelaide United player.
Yeah.
Para Hills Knights was where he started, Adelaide City, and then South Australia, Adelaide United, and on to Brighton. So, again, Chief, should we just bring everyone out of Adelaide because they are doing a job? Another great keeper. He had 14 caps for the 20s. He's had 5 caps for the 23s. Another future generational goalkeeper that we've got on our books, and a great move remaining in Brighton. We know how much Brighton have a thing for that young talent, don't we? And they've definitely got one of our best young keepers here.
I'll throw it to you though. Is it a bit like the Cam Pupion scenario when he was there playing in their youth teams and in the academies, and he's obviously played an integral part in the Premier League 2 side, but is that where we want a 21-year-old to be, or do we want him out on loan, even if it is to say a League 1 team, to be playing, you know, in in a men's competition against seasoned professionals, or do we want him playing in these youth ranks? Yes, it is a fantastic club. It's a development club. It's a Premier League club. But I think if not this season, definitely next season, we want to see him out on loan. He's probably a fair way down the pecking order to be getting a first team cap at Brighton. Hopefully I'm proven wrong in that, and then he does get some game time maybe in the League Cup or early rounds of the FA Cup or something. But I would just want to see him maybe spread his wings and hopefully pick up a loan deal somewhere. I think that would really help him along his way.
Yeah, I think a loan move's a good move. I think the most important thing is he signed a professional contract. So he's in that Premier League, professional side, and I think you're right. Goalkeepers, though, don't tend to mature till a bit later. You don't really see many young goalkeepers start. So I think at 21, he's probably, you're 100% right, looking at that loan option in the next 12 months. But I think keep developing, and I think next 12 months, yeah, go out there, go in the lower leagues, or go to a Belgium or Holland, and yeah, see what you can do. But I think 21 for a goalkeeper is
Well,
probably like a 18-year-old defender, wouldn't you think?
yeah, I agree with that. I suppose, yeah, maybe I'm going off a bit too early, but I just want to see him flourish because the best way to learn is to be going into these uncomfortable environments. And look, as I said before, I can't help but think about Cam Pupion, who had so much talent and potential. And you look what he's done. He's gone to the second division in the Netherlands last year, and he's kind of flourished in that environment. So almost taken like a step back to take a step forward. You Brighton in the Europa Conference League qualification. So again, if they are to qualify for the Europa Conference League, he might be the type of keeper that goes and plays those early rounds in those games that they're expected to win and expected to dominate. So I guess we'll wait and see how Brighton fare in that competition first.
Yeah, I know. I look at like even I was watching Salford's story. I know this is a bit off topic for Aussies, but the Aussie coach there, Peter Klimowski, he's an Aussie one in League Two, and they went and got Sunderland's similar story to Stephen Hall, England, one of England's under 21 goalkeepers. He's only 19, representing similar path like what Stephen Hall's doing, and he's down at League Two, learning the craft. So yeah, you might be right though. He definitely at 21 should be looking for some first team football somewhere if he doesn't get some time in Europe. But you're right. It is a pretty deep competition in Europe if Brighton make it, and there's going to be a hell of a lot of games. So we could potentially, I've got no doubt, see Stephen Hall debut at some point this year. So it'd be very interesting what goes on at Brighton.
I think we've definitely seen it for clubs like Crystal Palace and West Ham when they both won those competitions. Certainly in the early rounds when they're playing this weaker opposition, that's the time to roll the dice a little bit, particularly early on when you may be able to afford the odd loss or odd draw, but playing a few of your fringe players or more inexperienced players and seeing how they go. But yeah, good situation overall there for Stephen Hall. Obviously, Brighton wouldn't be re-signing him if they didn't see something in his potential. So good luck to him, and I hope he has a fantastic season coming up. Moppe, we're back in action in England. League Cup kicking off this weekend. Why don't you take us through the action?
Yep, it took Mo Toure a hell of a long time to score his first goal, didn't it? 6 minutes back on the goal scoring sheet. If you
40
remember,
seconds, mate. 40 seconds.
oh, was it 40 seconds? Oh, opening minute. Sorry, my apologies. 40 seconds. And then set up the assist. Sorry, 6 minutes later, got a bit excited there. Sorry, Mo Toure. He probably because he didn't start against Egypt, but that's another story. Look, Mo Toure, he scored a scream in the opening minute. Obviously, from acute angle, smacked it top right hand corner. He then assists Norwich's second goal just 6 minutes later, sending his side on their way to a 4-1 win over MK Dons, who are obviously Sammy Silvera's new side, and Sammy Silvera come off the bench. He played 33 minutes for MK Don, so great to see Silvera get some game time. And we had 90 minutes for Harry Souttar. A lot of people have been talking about Harry Souttar, whether he'll move, but Leicester City obviously have come out and said that they want him to stay, so it'll be interesting what happens with him. He played a full 90, completed 158 passes. That's a hell of a lot of passes in Leicester's 1-0 win over Northampton Town. And I'll tell you what, this fellow has been on fire in pre-season. Alex Robinson, he played 90 minutes in Carter's 3-2 win over Swindon Town. He's been in super form, Chief. He's on a mission this year, and Carter's in the championship, getting promoted last season. And the Rock of Gibraltar, Cam Burgess, played 90 minutes for Swansea, but his side unfortunately go down to fellow championship side Birmingham 1-0. And Chief, I love this young kid, Thomas Waddingham. He plays 8 minutes off the bench before succumbing to a bad tackle, which means he's likely to be sidelined for the extended period again. Had a shocking season last year of injuries. Another ankle injury, and Pompey went down 3-1 in the end. Hayden Matthews was an unused sub. Not happy days for the Aussies in Pompey.
No, not at all, mate. And the coach, John Messina, not happy about the tackle at all that was in on Thomas Waddingham. And his fear was that it is going to be a long-term injury. So fingers crossed it's not the case. He had a shocking run with injury last year. I think he started with his hip and then he had some leg injuries as well. So, yeah, shocking run of form in terms of injuries anyway for Thomas Waddingham. And, yeah, let's hope that this one's not an extended period out. What about Harry Souttar? He's the passing machine, and they gave him the captain's armband. Is that enough to keep him at Leicester for this season?
Well, I guarantee if he stays at Leicester, he'll play every week. You would think a player of his talent, minimum expectation would be championship, Scottish Premier League, or even on an opportunity in the Prem at the lower teams, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think League One is below him, but yeah, who knows? Like, I suppose it's about the club finding the right deal and Harry being comfortable going to that club as well. So, there's still some time, still 3 or so weeks before the transfer window closes, and we'll see if anything comes about or whether he ends up playing League One this season.
Well, I know Sheffield United did put a bid in of 10 million, Chief, and it was knocked back by Leicester. So Sheffield United are sniffing around, and he was heavily linked to West Ham as well, with manager looking at him as well and for West Ham. So very interesting times. Whether Sheffield United or West Ham go back in for the Aussie centre back. I think if he missed nearly the whole last season, didn't he? He only come right at the end, played right at the end for Leicester. So I think if he was playing last year, it'd be a different story. But obviously, he would be thinking, I just want to get game time. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, like you said, definitely higher caliber than League One.
All right, mate, let's duck over to Scotland. We're going to go all the way back to last weekend to start with, because Motherwell took 3 points as they went away to Hibs and won 2-1. This game featured four Aussies. Jake Gerbeldreich got 65 minutes. Oscar Priestman got 81 minutes for Motherwell. And then on the other side of the pitch, Martin Boyle grabbed a goal and got 72 minutes. And he was replaced by Ante Suto, who came on in the 72nd minute. And then midweek, some European action. We saw Cam Devlin play the second half as Rangers lost their Europa League qualification first leg 2-1 in Poland. So a bit of work for them to do in the second leg. And then Oscar Priestman and Jake Gerbeldreich both played 90 minutes as Motherwell record a 1-1 away draw to Finnish side HJK in their Conference League qualifier. Johnny Kachumbas also got 10 minutes off the bench. You know who scored the goal for that Finnish side? Remember Pukki, who played for Norwich all those years ago in the Premier League? He's still getting around at 38 or 39 or something. He was the
Wow.
one that scored the goal. All right. Also in the Europa Conference League qualifiers, Hibs scored a 2-1 win with Martin Boss starting and playing 59 minutes. And he was again replaced by Ante Suter. They're sharing minutes, these boys. And then what about overnight, mate? Jacob Chapman, he's on fire. Saved a penalty on his way to a clean sheet as St Mirren beat St Johnson 1-0 and top of the league. St Mirren absolutely flying with Jacob Chapman on fire.
St Mirren nearly got relegated last year. They could hardly win a game, and young Jacob Chapman he snuck up on us, didn't he? Obviously going to St Mirren now. Obviously, his youth career as a former Sydney United player, so Sydney United will be excited. And he did play. He did go to Marconi, but didn't get any game time for the senior sides. Now he's been loaned out from Huddersfield like 5 times, and then finally, after those 5 loans, decided to go to St Mirren. And yeah, wow, what a story, Jacob Chapman. I think this is just unbelievable. Born in Warraroonga, Chapman spent his early career, like I said, with Sydney United and Marconi before moving to England in 2018. So the town of Warrawoonga, where is Warrawoonga, Chief? Don't tell me it's in Adelaide. No, it's in New South Wales, 18 kilometres northwest of Sydney Central District. So there you go. Warrawoonga, he's got a born star there, Jacob Chapman. Another goalkeeper, Chief, as Australia's on fire.
I know. Look, St Mirren aren't going to win the league, right? But I think starting the season so well just gives them a platform, doesn't it? And you might not need to pick up that many wins to stay above the relegation zone in Scotland, and just to have a flying start and might give them a sneaky chance to make that top six at the end of the season. So yeah, good on him. And Keanu Bacchus still to come back from injury for St Mirren as well.
Yeah, they had a good couple of good cup runs, didn't they, St Mirren? So yeah, look, Kieran Bacchus, he's felt like he's been out for ages. So yeah, we wish him all best. But how cool St Mirren's just again the Scottish Premier League, I love it. It's just throwing up some more curveballs. It's exciting, and a lot of games tonight too, because of obviously a lot of sides in Europe midweek. All right, we'll be following that story again. But we have to go to Europe, and Marcus Tilio, he gets another 20 minutes as his side, SK Rapid, has a 1-0 win over at Al Touch, and they then play in their Conference League qualifier. They had a midweek game, and they won 4-1, with Tilio playing another 59 minutes. So he is getting some game time, which is great to see. Jed True gets 26 minutes off the bench as Hartberg lose 2-0 to Sturm Graz. I also did see Noah Bodic is back in the full training, Chief, too, so that's good news. I've seen a photo of him come up,
Oh,
so
good.
it's good to see.
Nice.
Yep, he's back to full fit, not quite back to full fitness, but very close. So he is up and about. So good news there. Netherlands, we had Josh Nisbet, his Roda JC lose 1-0 to FC Emmen, with the midfielder playing 90 minutes, and Maxi Ballard is an unused sub for Nak Breda as they lose 2-1. Over in Denmark, Marcus Eunice starts again the 45-minute stint in Brøndby, winning 1-0 over Viborg. And Chief, a few more other European countries to go through.
Yeah, let's go to Norway. Gianni Stensnes doing really well at Viking. Played a full game here as they won 2-1 to keep pace with Bodo Glimt at the top of the table. I think they're 1 point behind with a game in hand. So it looks like it might go down to the wire in Norway as it did last season as well. In Hungary, we saw Daniel Arzani get some rare minutes. He was a second half sub in a 1-0 first leg tie as Ferencváros won 1-0 over Gornik from Poland. He then started and played 45 minutes as Ferencváros lost 2-1 to Real Madrid in a friendly. So yeah, Arzani picking up a few minutes in Hungary that we haven't seen for quite a while. And Garan Quol in the Czech Republic, he played 90 minutes for Sparta Prague, but they go down 2-0. It's just the third time since December, Mopper, that he has played 90 minutes. Turns 22 next month, Garan Quol. Still very young, having broken onto the scene very early, but big season it feels like ahead for Garan Quol too. He got to Sparta Prague pretty late last season, but he's had full preseason. Obviously, he didn't go to the World Cup, so no interruption there. And hopefully we can see more 90-minute performances for Garan Quol. Looked like he played in a bit of a 10 role in this game. So, yeah, what do you make of that, and what do you think he's going to get out of this season?
Yeah, look, just happy that he's getting the opportunity. And look, I think with Sparta, it's a good side. He should get some good game time. So it's up to him, isn't it? His coach challenged him, didn't he, in preseason? Said loads of ability, but effort, work rate needs to be consistent. So I just hope that we see the best of Garan Quol, because I think all Aussies remember 4 years ago the potential, but geez, hasn't a lot happened in 4 years in football. So it does hurt, I think, your career. And this is what we talked about before about making the right move. When, he just got played in, he didn't see any football, did he, for a couple of years? It really stunted his growth, I think. And, it was a bit disappointing. But, yeah, look, he's got an opportunity there now, 22, to really push on. All right, mate, we're going to go to Germany, and one of my favourite Matildas, Haley Russo, starts and scores the opening goal, playing 59 minutes in an 8-0 thumping in a Champions League qualifier against Omania to move a step closer to Champions League. They obviously played Europa League last year. She then starts again for Frankfurt when they beat Malmo 2-0. with Courtney Nevin, obviously, and Amy Sayer starting for the Swedish side. So over in Sweden, also, we've seen FC Rosengard. They start with a front three of young Matildas, Izzy Gomez, Remy Simpson, and Briley Henry. But fortunately, they go down 2-0 and are currently sitting in the relegation zone. So bit of concern there for Rosengard, but great to see that all three were entrusted to play. And Slovenia, Yaya Dugale plays 59 minutes. We know we've seen him last year for Adelaide in NK Celje's 1-0 league win, their first of the season. So great start for young Yaya, and he'll be very excited to be over there in Slovenia getting first-team football.
Right, let's go to the US, Moppo. Archie Goodwin starts and scores for Charlotte in their 3-0 Leagues Cup win over Universidad Nacional. Nice little header there at the back post, and geez, that was a big grin on his face when he popped that one in. He absolutely loved that one. Alex Bonnetti also played 90 minutes for Portland in their 5-2 win over Puebla in the Leagues Cup. So some big wins for the United States teams over some of those Mexican teams. And then NWSL, Sam Kerr played 90 minutes in Gotham FC's 1-0 win over San Diego Waves to keep them top of the league with not too many games to go in the NWSL.
And we go over now to the J League, which opened the season this weekend. And we start with Machedo's opening game and sees Duke and Yengi start. I was very excited when I seen this lineup, and it didn't take long for Mitch Duke. He scored the equaliser in the 27th minute after their team went down 1-0. And then Teddy Yengi then got in the action as Machedo, who's fourth in a big 5-1 win, helped with a send-off there just before half-time. Other Aussies in action, Jeff United, obviously Dan Hall, he starts in the heart of the defence, but concede to Sanfrecce early on, and they go on to lose 3-0. And over in China, we've seen Chengdu suffer a 1-0 loss, and that's after 5 consecutive draws. They've lost again to Yukon, but still remain top with that massive break in China.
All right, we're going to dive into the Australia Cup action in 1 second. But first, I have a question for you, Mopper, that's come from Ozlock. He's asked if Harrington had stayed in the A-League, do you think a big league club would still have made a similar offer? And then a follow-up question, will Tartu, Eames, Akolakon have to find a stepping stone like the MLS before a big league club takes them seriously? What do you think?
Oh, what great questions. If he would have stayed in the A-League, would he still had a similar offer? Not quite. I think half of what that would have been offered, because we're a picking ground, aren't we? These European clubs I think because of the World Cup, it would have been probably halfway in the middle, because he would be obviously seen, and there would be a lot of attention on him. But if it was the A-League, they would have negotiated down just because of our pecking and standing order. But I still think what did he go for? 32 million. He probably would have gone for about 15, I reckon, 16, due to the nature of Australia and the A-League. What are your thoughts on that?
I tend to agree in terms of the price tag. I also don't think anytime soon we're going to see a player go straight from the A-League to the Premier League. I think we're always going to need that stepping stone just for the moment. I know we've seen recently Ocon and Patrick Beach go to Germany and France respectively. But yeah, the Premier League, I think, is probably a bridge too far to go straight from the A-League. So I definitely think for those other players that he's mentioned in terms of Amlati Tatu, Hayne Eames, Kola Con, that they're not going to make a move. And what are we talking about in terms of transfers directly from the A-League? We're talking about, I think, Aaron Kunda or maybe Tilio. It's still talking kind of max 5 million direct from the A-League. So I think in terms of our league and the respect that it gets around the world, I think there's a level of respect, but I don't think that's quite to that level where we're going to pick up, those multiple $1 million figures any higher than kind of 5 or so at the moment. But it just shows you that, he's made a smart move over to the MLS, and maybe with these guys, Akola Con's been linked to the MLS. Hayne Eames has been linked to all sorts of places as well. So if these guys do make that move and their ambition is to get to the Premier League, they are going to need to have a stepping stone, whether that is, one of those other top five leagues, if they're fortunate enough to get there, whether that is the Championship, obviously just under the Premier League with plenty of eyes on it, or the MLS, the route that Lucas Harrington has taken.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think to get the A League and more serious about transfers and players not going to these stepping stones, we'd have to go further and deeper in World Cups at all levels, not just the seniors, for probably Europe to take us more seriously. I think if we would get to the quarterfinals or semi-finals of World Cups or make it that far, it would definitely give those young kids an opportunity to go straight to the Premier League, like you said. But until we make that step, I don't think we're ever going to be taken that serious at those fees. And look, the MLS is a stepping stone because it's very high profile at the moment, and a lot of players are going over there because of the amount of money that's in there. And it's only been boosted by the World Cup and what Messi and what Beckham have been doing, and it's becoming a very fluent league over there and a very difficult league too. So it's going to come to the point, and this is where I get a little bit concerned because Archie Goodwin was one of those talents, and he hasn't played much for Charlotte, and I get concerned when these young players like Eames and Akon, I'd love to see them go to a club that at least they're going to play for. They're going to have to be very careful because I hate to see them in the same situation where Archie Goodwin's only getting 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's just not enough, and this is the problem. And we're very excited about where players have gone this year based on the clubs that they've selected because it's shown last year how vital that was. And I think Australians have learnt a lot in the last year or two. But I just hope these kids find that right stepping stone club in America as well. And just because they need game time. They need to play. It's the worst thing ever when you see players not play. And Harrington's the perfect example. He didn't go to a massive club. That club's down the bottom, but he started every week and he got recognised. And the Socceroos, Tony Popovic picked him, which obviously elevated that one. And we know what his last couple of years have been like. So, what did you say last week? He played 50 games, I think, in 12, 18 months or something, which is exactly what we want these young kids to play. If they're not playing 50 games, then they're not going to make that next step, are they?
No, that's right. Yeah, I think 49 games we had him at last week, and I don't think he's played a game since. So yeah, his 50th game could be in the Premier League, which would be fascinating. But I'd be surprised if there's any countries in Asia, and we spoke just before about how highly regarded the J League is, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's not that many transfers actually directly from the J League even straight into the Premier League. It's one of those things where clubs in the Premier League are quite selective, and they want more established players. And I think Asia as a whole is still not respected, and we saw that a lot when Ange Postecoglou got his gigs in Celtic and then at Spurs as well. That just even the media and the public, I don't think they hold Asia in such a high regard. So, yeah, it'd be fascinating. Might even look into that before next week. But fantastic question there from Oslock. And look, those players, Tatu, Eames, and Akola Khan, there's some others as well in the A League. I can't wait to see how some of those kids flourish in the A League this season.
Yep, 100%, my friend. All right, mate. We've got a returning Australian Cup round of 16. Do you want to go through the Australian Cup that the round of 16 started last night?
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating game. Bit of a tough grind for both clubs. I'd say the Western Sydney Wanderers dominated the majority of the game. The real headline, though, was Jack Duncan making 3 saves in the penalty shootout from Dylan Zakulina, Awan Lawal, and Alex Gersbach to send Melbourne Victory through to the Australia Cup quarterfinals. But earlier, Wanderers dominated with several good chances falling to Aiden Hammond. It was 0-0 after 90 minutes, but yeah, just a bit of a tough grind. They played that one out at Marconi Stadium. Seemed like a very good atmosphere, and it was well supported by everyone that got out there and watched. But the pitch probably didn't look in the best condition, which I don't think helped either team. Extra time, we saw Harry Sawyer poke home his first goal for the Melbourne Victory from close range to give a Victory the lead before What a stunning free kick this one. Nicholas Milanovic equalised, marking his return to Western Sydney. Geez, that was an absolute scream, wasn't it? And we've seen those type of goals from Milanovic in the past.
He's back, isn't he? And he's got a big smile on his face. And yeah, it was an absolute cracker. So yeah, great to see him back in the A-League. Unfortunately, his time in Scotland didn't go too well, but he's back playing football with the Western Sydney Wanderers, and he's going to have a great year this year. Well done to the victory, and Mopper's hot tip to win the competition rolls on into the quarterfinals, my friend.
They were pretty unconvincing, I have to say. I think the Wanderers very much dominated this game, and they were probably pretty fortunate to be able to get it to extra time. And look, job done, well done to them for doing that. But yeah, they probably weren't as convincing as the Wanderers, and definitely for the Wanderers fans, I think although they didn't win that one, they can take a lot of confidence from that going into the following A-League season. What about today's action, Mopper? We saw a very fiery affair between Brisbane Roar and Sydney FC. This one played at Spencer Park. And Sydney FC came flying out of the blocks. Sakina scoring in just the second minute with a nice back post header. And then Ben Garuccio, we know he can come up with an absolute stunning goal. A long ball from Jordan Courtney Perkins. He latched onto it, caught Dean Bazanas off his line, and just volleyed it into the far post. Very, very nice goal. And then closing in on halftime, Tiago Quintal got his standard goal. Nice press from Sydney FC. The ball fell to him and he just put it away so nicely. Jordan Lawton grabbed one back for the Brisbane Roar from close range in first half stoppage time. So it looked like Sydney FC were going to run away with it. Brisbane Roar a little bit ill-disciplined. Their central midfielders, Milorad Stojic is back, Mopper. He was right in the middle of the action, throwing his weight around and arguing with everyone that would listen. That was very fun to see. And then late on in the second half, Alex Popovic, don't know what he was thinking, but a cross came across and he tried to chest it back to Gus Huffslet and slotted it into the far post, and a bit of a howl that one for Popovic. But then his namesake helped him out with a nice finish in the 95th minute. Ball across from Al Hassan Toure and Gabriel Popovic made it 4-2 to seal the game. But Brisbane Roar were definitely coming late. Probably just got a bit stretched there at the end. But what about the firepower from Sydney FC to bring off the bench? Wataru Kamijo, who obviously started a lot of games next to Paul Okonengsler in the back half of last season. Jake Holman came off the bench, fresh from his stint at Warsaw last season. Al Hassan Toure, the Socceroo, and then Gabriel Popovic, the goal scorer. So very young, exciting lineup that Sydney FC started with, and then just bring the cavalry off the bench. And I think they're going to be very strong this season. We haven't even seen a Colacon in the Australia Cup yet, but there's quality all over the pitch for Sydney FC.
Yep, they're in for a big year, and yet we've seen some of that young talent last year, and they're just coming of age and getting the starts, isn't it? That's the difference. You know, they got the opportunity, so yeah, that looks like they're going to go deep. It's going to be a very exciting quarterfinal for them.
Who do you think starts for Sydney FC? They've started a bit with Matthias McAllister. We know who's a young emerging talent, and then obviously Gabriel Popovic has come off the bench. I mean, this one, do you think they'll stick with one of those two, or do you think they're still looking for maybe a big international marquee? We know Campuzano has a long-term injury, so he won't be about this season for quite some time. Or maybe even Al Hassan Toure up front. What do you think they're going to go with?
Yeah, I think they'll go with Toure, Alhassan Toure up front, and I think McAllister though will play alongside him. I think I think Casnovo not afraid to throw these young players in, and I think that's what he'll go with. And why not? Like they're shown in pre-season that they're ready to start, and we've seen it in the A-League last year. They just need opportunity, and they'll flourish from this. And I just hope he goes all young and all Aussie, and you know, reap the rewards from it. I think they're always stuck in that mental battle, aren't they, Sydney FC, that they require some international player but it hasn't worked out for them for a long time. So what just do what Adelaide do and just let them rock and roll and they'll bear the fruits of it.
Well, they have got a good academy with players coming through all the time. So I think you're right.
100%.
I think
Yeah.
trust in those players that are coming through, and we never know what you might get. Joe Lacey also started in this one, which was nice to see as well. He's been playing for Wales in the under-19 team, so still obviously eligible to play for Australia down the line if that's in his path. But he has been getting some experience with Wales of late, Joe Lacey.
Yeah, that's good news. I'm sure him being in Australia, that will help our cause as well.
And then there's a match that's going on as we're recording, mate. South Melbourne jumped out to a 2-0 lead against Fremantle City. And then Fremantle City came storming back. They were leading 3-2, but Bull Juarch has pulled back one for South Melbourne. So currently 3-all in that game with about 10 minutes to go. So fascinating tie. Looked like South Melbourne were running away with it, but credit to Fremantle City who have come storming back.
Wow, that's exciting for Freo. I wouldn't have even thought they'd be competitive in this game, but wow, it just goes to show. There you go, go Freo, and South Melbourne. It looks like it's going to be headed for extra time or penalties. So yeah, good luck to both sides watching that one.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to a bit more transfer activity. This one is a Socceroo who played at the World Cup, coming back to the A-League after 12 seasons away. A1 Mobile in at Melbourne City. What do you make of that for A1 Mobile and for Melbourne City?
Yeah, it was in La Liga 2 last year, playing a bit part there. His club pushed for promotion, but they fell away at the end. I think it's the right time for him at 30 to come back home, isn't it? Like he's been over in Europe for such a long time, and has always been that bits part, never really consolidated anywhere, has he? So I think it's perfect situation for him with Melbourne City. A strong club, always pushing for honours and, always up there. And so I think it's a good one for Mobile. It'd be very interesting with Asia Cup coming up, whether he's actually one of those players on the fringes. And obviously we didn't see any time of him at the World Cup. Would he get selected again? That'll be probably the talking point, because I don't think Melbourne City's in Asia either. So that'd be interesting to see what happens from there.
Yeah, he did get a couple of minutes against Egypt in that game, but you're right. I think it was a surprise selection for me in the World Cup, and I don't think we'll see him in and around that just with the other options available in those wide positions. But I think for Melbourne City, it's a good pickup as well. We know how much young talent they've got in that squad, and I think just a sprinkling of some experience around there. You've got Mobile now, you got Naboot, you got Lecky around, you got
Atkinson.
yeah, Atkinson as well. Yeah, good call. So I think having those little sprinklings of experience, and you can imagine young players who are wanting to get to Europe, speaking to a player who's been there and done that, and he's played in Europe before European competitions. So I think he will absolutely be able, and he seems like the type of guy as well that would be happy to share that experience. Seems very humble, very down to earth. So I think good signing for both on and off the field for Melbourne City.
Yep, definitely. And Chief, we had some great news during the week from the Central Coast Mariners women's side. They're saved, and the AAP report that Holman Barnes Group HBG, the majority owners of the NRL team West Tigers and shareholders in RPL Leica, are expected to be confirmed the new team owners today. The deal will allow the club to compete in the Ninja A-League Women this season. So great news for the Central Coast Mariners women's side.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and obviously this was kind of spoken about, but even before the takeover of the men's team for the Mariners, that the Holman Barnes Group may potentially be involved, and obviously kept their interest there, and taken over the women's team, which is amazing news. And I think the fact that the majority owners of the West Tigers and shareholders of RP Leichhardt, I think that's a good thing for the Central Coast Mariners because they can lean on a bit of that experience from running those other two clubs, one being professional, one being semi-professional, but they'll also be able to tap into some of the resources of those clubs as well, no doubt. So I think it's a good move. And look, the most important thing is that these Mariners players and everyone involved in the Mariners women's program have some security around their jobs, and looking forward to what they can do next season. They just missed the finals last season after winning the championship the season before. So we know that there's plenty of talent, and we know that they always recruit well and produce talent well out of the Central Coast area. So yeah, fantastic news for everyone involved in the Central Coast women's side, and congratulations to the Holman Barnes group for getting involved. That's fantastic.
And Chief, we also have Matilda's news. Katrina Gorry simply taking a pause, taking a break from football until 2027 to focus on her family. Obviously, some of the best chapters of her life began when you're taking a moment to pause, and this is from Katrina Gorry. For now, I'm choosing family and embracing this next chapter with the people I love the most. This isn't a goodbye, a simple pause. I'm already looking forward to return to football in 2027 and doing everything I can to earn the chance to wear the green and gold again. Thank you for respecting our family's privacy during this time. I'll see you back on the pitch in 2027. It's only really, 5 months off, but good time that she obviously needs, an important time of her life.
Yeah, good on her. We know that she obviously had that break when she was pregnant with young Harper. So yeah, it's not like she hasn't done this type of thing before, and she came back probably better than ever after that break. So yeah, I'm sure she'll be back in 2027, and yeah, we wish her all the best with her family time while she's off during that period. Let's go to Australian Championship, mate, which is just around the corner, really. South Hobart returning after clinching the NPL Tasmania Premiership.
Yep, great news. So we're there last year. Didn't have much success. I think they were paired with Wolves and was it Marconi or Sydney Olympic last year?
Marconi
Didn't
and Heidelberg,
Mar-
yeah.
Yeah, so very tough group they got last year. But they're back for the second year and pushing the Tasmanian cause, which is really cool. And I think that's a good sign for Tasmanian football. Hopefully they can have a better Australian Championship this year. And we'll start to see some of those clubs, obviously, now as some of the leagues are finishing. We also have some Ninja A-League news. Brisbane Raw appointed the youngest ever coach. Jonathan Clement, only 27, takes over the women's side. So well done to Jonathan. He's had a very prestigious career already. Started, I think, with Melbourne City women's side as assistant there, learning his craft at a young age. So we wish him all the best with a good, exciting side for Brisbane Raw last year. They had a good year.
Absolutely, mate. Let's just finish off with an update on the CBA between the APL and the PFA. This is a statement put out on the A-League's website during the week. I'm just going to read some of the parts of it. They've basically agreed on 52 of the 53 items have been agreed in principle between the PFA and the APL, as outlined by the PFA in the presentation on the 7th of July 2026. And then the APL's updated position seeks to address the remaining unresolved item at that time by proposing a significant increase to the maximum salary cap for the A-League women, as well as further provisions for the A-League men and A-League women's players to have a direct say in the strategic direction of the professional game. In addition to the items agreed in principle, we have proposed the following updated and additional elements: a 41% increase to the A-League women's salary cap on last year to 900,000, an increase from the previous offer of 775,000. Significant inclusions from the A-League women's salary cap comprising pro rata amounts associated with A-League women's contracts beyond 38 weeks, and the allocation of a marquee player fund up to 3 players to be initiated for season 2026-27. There's some nice parts in here in terms of the players getting more involved in some of the decision making around the APL, which I think is really important. I think that's kind of the whole point of having the clubs running the league, and an integral part of the clubs is the players, obviously, and having them have some kind of say in a strategic direction of where the game is going, or at least be kind of involved in knowing what's happening, rather than just being a kind of cog in the wheel of just kind of turning up and doing your part. And a lot of these players are so invested in not just themselves, not just their club, but the success of the league as a whole. So I think the more involved some players get, the better. So look, it sounds like that there's just this one kind of part that's a bit of a sticking point, and hopefully they can come to some kind of arrangement between the two deals and have a really good season kicking off. The men's competition is kicking off on Friday the 16th of October, and the women's on Saturday the 17th October. So yeah, they're hoping to put a women's draw out in the next few weeks. Obviously, that was contingent on the Mariners being in, but now that's settled. Hopefully, we see that competition, the fixture list, and everyone can get it around it and get excited about it.
Yep, definitely a stronger proposal. I like the improvements in it. Obviously, there was a little bit of discussion around them just launching this in the media, but a bit of tit for tat. But I think the conditions are a lot better. So hopefully they can come up with an agreement, and that really ticks the boxes. I'm pretty sure, looking at this proposal, there was a lot of things they suggested in that. So hopefully they'll be happy with that and can move forward, so we can just get this, obviously the EBA, or underway, so we can get this competition and focus on the positives, and with this agreement in place. So I think it's important for both parties to really nut this final deal out. I
Okay.
did a bit of research, Chief, into those Japanese players that we're talking about. So straight from J League to the Premier League. So Matoma went for 3 million from Kawasaki to Brighton. You've even got Takuma, who went to Arsenal. He only went for 4 million. Shinji Ono went for 5 million to Feyenoord from the Euro Red Diamonds, and Kaigo, who Farashi, who Ange bought, went for 5.4, and that was the record at the time. So yeah, there you go. Real great question. Also, you can see, and great feedback from you, Chief, too, around the J League, because you're 100% right. Those figures from even the J League aren't that real respected, are they? From, you talk about Matoma now, he'd be a $30-40 million player easy.
When he went there, he's probably like behind Trossard in the pecking order, and just had to bide his time there. So even those players aren't going straight from the J League into any kind of starting position in the Premier League. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by the fees. I would have thought maybe they were a little bit higher, but yeah, it does show you, doesn't it, that I just think that's a bit of a respect thing from the Asian continent. They want to see proven levels, and I think probably, as you said before, the MLS is starting to be that proven level where they think that they can do it in that competition and transfer that across.
Yep. It's a great question also, though. I love these type of topics because it's so true around, and what our league is based on, isn't it? And what it can demand. So it's a very interesting topic. Hopefully, the J League and Japan and Australia can really push on in the future in the World Cup and really get that prestigious name in the lights and really lift these fees. Because I'll tell you what, imagine it'd be just game changing, wouldn't it? Like, imagine if Brisbane Roar got 32 million, what that could do for the club. It'd just be unbelievable. So it's just been an extraordinary day, and I can't wait to see that day when it happens, because it's well deserved. They've done all the development, haven't they?
Yep, definitely. I think even though I read during the week, even though they cashed out on that sell-on clause, they still picked up 3 or 4 million or so from the Harrington transfer once it goes through from Hull. So that's fantastic, and let's hope that that gets reinvested really smartly by Brisbane Roar. Let's have a look at a couple of games coming up, mate. Scotland, as you mentioned before, back in action tonight. Hearts playing Dundee United, so plenty of Aussies in Dundee United. Hopefully we see plenty of them get a run. Motherwell playing Falkirk. We've also got Randers in action. We'll see whether Paul Izzo is back between the sticks or Musa Toure gets a look in. Rangers against Hibs. There's going to be Aussies everywhere there as well. Palmer in action. Rapid, Vienne, Brøndby. Plenty of action coming up tomorrow. And then as we go into midweek, we got Australia Cup action kicking off on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. Back into European qualifiers. Doesn't stop, does it, mate?
Mate, it's the time, and it's our favourite time of the year with all this kicking off. So yes, it's going to be awesome. And Chief, just a quick one as we go to bed. It is 3-3 still at that game. It looks like it's going in injury time with South Melbourne and Fremantle City.
Well, good on you, Fremantle, for making that comeback and making a game of it. And yeah, can't wait to see extra time penalties. So fantastic watching. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening tonight. Thanks for your time, Mopper. We'll be back Same time next week to wrap up all things Australian football. But in the meantime, enjoy football.
All the best, everyone.